The fluorescent lights in that conference room felt like spotlights burning through my soul. There I stood, 63 years old, wearing my DoorDash uniform that smelled like fried chicken, and disappointment, watching my own son's face twist with disgust as his coworkers laughed. "I don't know you," he screamed, his voice cutting deeper than any knife ever could. "You're not my father. You're nothing but a loser. I could never have a broke father like you." If you've ever been betrayed by someone you raised, someone whose diapers you changed, whose tears you wiped, whose dreams you built with your bare hands, then you know exactly how it feels when your heart stops beating while you're still standing. Before I continue this story that changed everything I thought I knew about love, money, and what makes a man worthy, do me a favor. Hit that like button if you've ever felt invisible in your own life. Subscribe if you want to hear how a construction worker brought Wall Street to its knees. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, because pain speaks every language, and I want to know who's listening to mine. My name is Sebastian Williams. I'm 71 years old now, but this happened 8 years ago when I was living in Newark, New Jersey, trying to hold together what was left of my American dream with calloused hands and a heart that refused to quit. Looking back now, I should have seen the signs. But when you're a father, you got these blinders on, you know? You see what you want to see. You tell yourself stories about who your children are, who they're becoming. You ignore the little cuts because you're too focused on the big picture, the one where everything you sacrificed actually means something. My boy Marcus was everything I never got to be. 23 years old, working at Steinberg and Associates, one of those Manhattan investment firms where they got marble floors so clean you could eat off them, and secretaries who looked like they stepped out of magazines. Every morning, I watched him leave our 2-bedroom apartment in his 3-piece suit, the one I saved 6 months to buy him. And I swear to God, my chest would swell up so much I thought my ribs might crack. "That's my son," I'd tell myself, watching from the window as he walked to his Audi. Yeah, he had an Audi, leased, but still. When I was his age, I was laying concrete in 100-degree heat, grateful for a bus pass. But Marcus had options. Marcus had a future. Marcus had everything I'd broken my back to give him. I remember the exact moment I first felt something shift between us. It was a Tuesday. I know because Tuesdays were when I did my DoorDash runs after getting off the construction site. My knees were killing me that day. 40 years of kneeling on concrete will do that to you. But bills don't care about your pain, and neither does rent. I was walking past this coffee shop on Madison Avenue, one of those places where a cup of coffee costs more than I make in an hour, when I saw him through the window. My Marcus, sitting with 4 other young folks, all of them looking like money had been in their families since before the Mayflower landed. And there was my boy, laughing at something, his hand gesturing the way it did when he was really into a story. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, just watching, feeling proud. Then I raised my hand to wave, started walking toward the door. That's when Marcus saw me. Our eyes met through that pristine glass, and I watched something die in his face. Not all at once. It was more like watching a sunset in reverse, darkness creeping in where light used to be. He turned away, didn't wave back, just turned his whole body away from the window, like he was studying something fascinating on the opposite wall. I stood there, hands still half raised, feeling like a fool in my paint-stained jeans and work boots. The doorman, the coffee shop had a doorman, looked at me like I was lost. "Can I help you, sir?" he asked, but the way he said sir made it sound like an insult. "No," I said, lowering my hand. "No, I'm good." That night, Marcus came home late. I was sitting in my recliner, the one with the duct tape holding the armrest together, pretending to watch the news. He walked past me without a word, heading straight to his room. "Marcus," I called out, "you have a good day at work?" He stopped but didn't turn around. "It was fine, Dad. Saw you at that coffee place on Madison. Looked like you were having fun with your friends." His shoulders tensed. "Those aren't my friends. They're colleagues. There's a difference." "Well, colleagues then. They seem nice." He finally turned around, and the look in his eyes made me feel smaller than I'd ever felt in my life. "Dad, can you not come around my work area? It's complicated." "Complicated how?" They don't. Look, everyone there comes from a certain background. They wouldn't understand our situation. Our situation. Like poverty was a disease we both had, but only I was showing symptoms. What do you tell them about me? I asked, even though part of me didn't want to know. He looked at the floor, then back at me. I tell them you're in real estate. Realist laughed. Boy, the only real estate I know is the dirt under my fingernails. It's not lying exactly. Construction is related to real estate. Marcus, Dad, please, just stay away from that area, please, for me. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. It was the sound of everything I thought I was as a father crumbling like old mortar. But I nodded. What else could I do? Love makes you stupid sometimes, makes you agree to things that shrink your soul. All right, I said. All right, son. He went to his room, and I sat there in my duct-tape chair, wondering when exactly my boy had started seeing me as something to be ashamed of. Was it gradual, like erosion, or did it happen all at once? Was there a specific moment when he looked at me and thought, this isn't enough, he isn't enough? The thing about shame is that it's contagious. Once someone you love makes you feel it, you start carrying it around like a stone in your chest. Every time Marcus looked at me after that night, I felt it getting heavier. But here's what I didn't know then, sitting in that chair feeling sorry for myself. Sometimes the biggest blessings come wrapped in the ugliest packages. Sometimes God's got to break you all the way down before he can show you what you're really worth. And that breaking, it hadn't even started yet. 3 months after that coffee shop incident, I was working on a high-rise in downtown Newark, one of those luxury towers they were throwing up all over the place, pricing out folks who lived in the neighborhood for generations. Ironic, isn't it? I was building homes I'd never be able to afford for people who'd probably look through me like I was made of glass. It was a Thursday morning when everything started to change, though I didn't know it at the time. My supervisor, Pete Kowalski, Polish guy, built like a refrigerator, been in construction since he was 16, pulled me aside during lunch break. Sebastian, he said, unwrapping his sandwich with hands that looked like hammers. You've been with us, 15 years now? 17, I corrected, taking a bite of my bologna sandwich. Same lunch I'd been eating for nearly 2 decades. Marcus used to beg me to try something else, said bologna wasn't even real meat. But when you grow up the way I did, you learn to appreciate consistency, even if it comes in processed form. 17 years, Pete repeated, shaking his head. And you never missed a day except when your wife passed. Cheryl. Even 5 years later, hearing someone mention her made my chest tighten. Breast cancer took her when Marcus was 18, right before he started college. She never got to see him graduate, never got to see him in that suit, walking into that Manhattan office building like he owned the place. Maybe that's why I let him get away with so much. I was trying to love him for both of us. What's this about, Pete? I asked. He looked around, making sure none of the other guys were within earshot. You know that deal with the Riverside project? The one that almost went sideways last month? I nodded. The Riverside project was supposed to be our company's biggest contract ever, a whole neighborhood development, hundreds of units. But there'd been a problem with the permits, something about environmental regulations. The whole thing was about to fall through until I remembered something from my night school days, back when I was young and stupid enough to think I could become an engineer. The wetlands provision, I said. Section 404 of the Clean Water Act. You saved our asses with that, Pete said. The boss wants to show his appreciation. He pulled out an envelope, handed it to me. Inside was a single piece of paper with numbers that made my hands shake. Stock options? I whispered. 50,000 shares. They're worth about $2 each right now, but the company's about to go public. Boss thinks they could hit 10, maybe $15 within the year. Could be worth even more down the line if you hold on to them. I stared at those numbers until they blurred. $100,000 potentially. More money than I'd ever seen in one place. Enough to change everything. Enough to make Marcus proud. Why? I asked. Why me? Pete smiled, and for the first time in 17 years, I saw him as more than just a supervisor. I saw him as a friend. Because you're the smartest guy on this crew, Sebastian. You just don't know it. You could have been running this company if you'd had the chances these young kids get today. Boss knows it. I know it. Everyone knows it except you. I folded the paper carefully, put it in my chest pocket, right over my heart. Pete, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything, and for God's sake, don't tell anyone. Not yet. These things, they can go south real quick if word gets out. Just hold on to them, let them grow. Think of it as a retirement fund. Or a future fund, I said, thinking of Marcus. Don't tell the boy either, Pete warned. Kids these days, they get dollar signs in their eyes, start making plans before the money's real. Let it be a surprise when the time is right. That night, I went home and hid that paper in the only place I knew Marcus would never look, inside my old Bible, the one Cheryl used to read from every Sunday. I pressed it between the pages of Proverbs, right at the verse that said, "Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall." I didn't tell Marcus about the stocks. How could I? He was already ashamed of what I was. If I told him about the potential money and it didn't pan out, would he be even more disappointed in me? And if it did pan out, would he suddenly start seeing me differently? Would his love become conditional on my bank account? So I kept working, kept doing my DoorDash runs in the evenings, kept watching my son pull further away from me like I was standing on a shore and he was drifting out to sea. Marcus started staying out later, started dropping names of restaurants I had to Google to understand, started using words like portfolio and diversification and market capitalization in casual conversation, like he was trying to convince himself he belonged in that world. One evening, I was delivering food to a brownstone in Brooklyn Heights when I overheard a conversation that stopped me cold. Two men in expensive suits were standing on the stoop, smoking cigarettes that smelled like money. "The Riverside development is going to make someone very rich," one of them said. "My broker says the company's stock could hit $40, $50 easy once they go public." "When's the IPO?" the other asked. "Next month. But it's all about who got in early. The initial investors are going to make a killing." My hand went instinctively to my chest, where I'd carried that paper for weeks before hiding it. $50 a share. 50,000 shares. The math was simple, but the number was impossible. $2.5 million. I delivered the food in a daze, nearly forgot to collect the tip. $2.5 million. Enough to buy respect, enough to buy pride, enough to make my son see me as something more than an embarrassment. But as I drove home that night, Cheryl's voice echoed in my head, something she used to say when Marcus was little and would lie about breaking something. The truth always comes out, Sebastian. It's just a matter of when and how much it costs you when it does. I didn't know then how much the truth would cost. I didn't know that sometimes the price of pride is everything you thought you were protecting. Marcus had become a master of illusion, and I watched from the sidelines like an audience member who'd figured out the magician's trick but couldn't bring myself to spoil the show. Every morning, he'd stand in front of our bathroom mirror, practicing facial expressions like an actor preparing for a role. "The Williams portfolio has shown consistent growth," he'd say to his reflection, adjusting his tie. My father's real estate ventures have been particularly lucrative in this market. The Williams portfolio. As if we had anything more than a checking account that barely survived from month to month, and a savings account with exactly $847. Cheryl's life insurance money that I refused to touch because it felt like spending pieces of her. It was a Wednesday when I first heard him on the phone with someone from work. I'd come home early from the construction site because of rain. Can't pour concrete in a downpour. And I was in the kitchen making a sandwich when I heard his voice from his room. "Yeah, Hampton's Place," he was saying. "My dad's been looking at properties out there. You know how it is, always expanding the portfolio." The Hamptons. I delivered food there once, spent 2 hours in traffic each way for a $15 tip. That was the closest I'd ever gotten to the Hamptons, and here was my son, spinning tales about properties I supposedly owned there. "Oh, the boat?" he continued, and I nearly choked on my sandwich. "It's nothing special, just a 40-footer. Dad's thinking about upgrading, actually." A 40-foot boat? We didn't even own a car that ran without prayer and duct tape, and he's inventing yachts. After he hung up, I knocked on his door. "Come in," he said, and when I entered, he was sitting at his desk, surrounded by financial magazines and printouts of charts I didn't understand. "Who was that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Just Bradley from work. He's organizing a weekend thing, wanted to know if I could bring the boat." He said it so casually, like we actually had a boat parked somewhere, waiting for weekend adventures. "And what did you tell him?" "That it's in maintenance." He didn't even look up from his papers. It's always in maintenance when you need an excuse. "Marcus." I sat down on his bed, feeling the old springs protest under my weight. "Why are you doing this?" He finally looked at me, and for a second, I saw the little boy who used to think I was Superman, who thought my construction helmet was a crown and my tool belt was a superhero's utility belt. "You wouldn't understand, Dad." "Try me." He sighed, rubbing his face with hands that had never known calluses. "Everyone at the firm, they're all connected. Bradley's father owns 3 hedge funds. Jennifer's family has been in banking since the 1800s. David's trust fund could buy a small country. And then there's me. There's nothing wrong with being you. The son of a construction worker who delivers food on the side." He laughed, but there was no joy in it. "Do you know what they'd say if they knew? Do you know how fast I become the diversity hire? The charity case they keep around to make themselves feel progressive? So you lie." "I survive," he corrected. "In that world, Dad, perception is everything. It doesn't matter how smart you are, how hard you work. If you don't have the right background, the right story, you're nothing." I wanted to tell him he was wrong. I wanted to tell him about the stocks, about the potential millions sitting in a Bible gathering dust. But something held me back. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was fear. Or maybe it was the realization that my son had become someone I didn't recognize. "Your mother would be disappointed," I said quietly. His face hardened. "Mom's not here, is she?" "She doesn't have to navigate this world. She doesn't have to watch people's faces change when they find out where you really come from." "She navigated plenty," I shot back, feeling anger rise in my chest. "You think it was easy for her? A black woman in nursing school in the 80s? You think everyone rolled out the red carpet for her? It was different then." "No, Marcus. She was different. She didn't pretend to be something she wasn't. She was proud of who she was, where she came from." "And where did that pride get her?" he snapped, then immediately looked stricken. "Dad, I didn't mean a 2-bedroom apartment and a husband who couldn't afford her cancer treatment until it was too late." I finished for him. "Is that what you were going to say?" The silence stretched between us like a year of Sundays. "I'm doing this for us," he finally said. "Once I make senior associate, once I have real money, things will be different. Decide I can take care of you. You won't have to work construction anymore. You won't have to deliver food. I don't need taking care of, Marcus. I need a son who isn't ashamed of me." "I'm not." He stopped, unable to finish the lie. I stood up, my knees creaking. "The investment property on the Riverside development went public today," I said, watching his face carefully. "Stock opened at $28. His eyes widened. "How do you know about that?" "I deliver food to a lot of places, hear a lot of conversations." $28, he whispered. "It was supposed to open at 15, maybe 20 max. Someone made a fortune today." Yeah, I thought. Someone did. But I just nodded and left his room, carrying the weight of my secret like a stone in my stomach. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the numbers. 50,000 shares at $28 was 1.4 million. By morning, I checked on my phone. The stock had climbed to $32, 1.6 million. But what good was money if it couldn't buy back the son I'd lost to his own ambition? What good was wealth if it came too late to save the relationship that mattered most? Outside my window, Newark slept fitfully, sirens and car horns creating a symphony of urban survival. And somewhere in the room next door, my son was probably awake too, constructing new lives for tomorrow's performance, building a fictional father he could be proud of, while the real one lay in the dark, rich in ways he couldn't imagine, and poor in ways that money could never fix. Spring came to Newark like it always did, reluctantly, fighting winter every step of the way. The construction site was a mud pit most days, and my boots were so caked with dirt that I started leaving them in the hallway, rather than track the mess inside. It was during one of those gray April mornings that I overheard Marcus on a video call with his colleagues. I'd just come back to grab my forgotten thermos. Coffee was the only thing keeping me upright these days, when I heard voices from his room. The door was slightly open, and I could see him at his desk, his laptop positioned just so, the background carefully curated to hide our humble reality. The Singapore deal was child's play. Someone was saying through the computer, "My father closed it in 3 days." 3 days? Marcus laughed, that fake laugh he'd perfected. My dad would have called that sluggish. He wrapped up the Miami development in 48 hours. Cash deal, no financing contingencies. I stood frozen in the hallway, thermos clutched in my muddy hands. Miami development? The only thing I developed in Miami was a sunburn during the one vacation Cheryl and I took there 15 years ago. "Your old man sounds like a shark, Marcus," another voice chimed in. "When do we get to meet this real estate tycoon?" "He's always traveling," Marcus said smoothly. "Tokyo this week, London next. You know how it is." Tokyo, London. The furthest I traveled this week was to Patterson for a DoorDash pickup that took 2 hours because of traffic. "Must be nice," the first voice said. "Hey, speaking of real estate, did you guys hear about that new luxury property in Tribeca? The one with the private elevator to each unit? The Paramount?" Marcus jumped in. "Yeah, I'm actually looking at a unit there." I nearly dropped the thermos. The Paramount. I'd seen billboards for it. Starting price, $3.2 million. Our entire apartment could fit in one of their walk-in closets. "No way," someone whistled through the computer. "Those are impossible to get. There's a waiting list a mile long." "Not if you know the right people," Marcus said, tapping his temple. "My dad has connections with the developer." That's when I made a mistake. I shifted my weight and the floorboard creaked, that same board that had been creaking for 10 years, the one I kept meaning to fix but never got around to. Marcus's head snapped toward the door, and our eyes met through the crack. The look on his face was something I'll never forget. It wasn't just embarrassment or anger, it was fear. Pure, undiluted fear, like a kid caught not just with his hand in the cookie jar, but with the whole jar stuffed under his shirt. "Hey guys, I need to jump off," he said quickly, his voice pitched higher than normal. "Early meeting tomorrow." He slammed the laptop shut and stood up so fast his chair rolled backward into the wall. "Dad," he started. "Tokyo's nice this time of year, I hear," I said quietly. "I can explain." "Can you? Can you explain why you're building this whole fantasy life? Why you need to pretend I'm someone I'm not?" He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture so much like his mother's that it made my heart clench. "They're talking about that property, Dad. The Paramount. These guys, their families actually own units there. Bradley's parents have two. One just for guests. So I can't be the only one sitting there with nothing to contribute. I can't be the guy whose father," he stopped. "Whose father what? Works honest labor, pays his bills, raised you right? Whose father is nobody." The words exploded out of him like they'd been building pressure for years. "In their world, Dad, you're nobody. And if you're nobody, then I'm nobody." Each word was a nail in my chest, but what hurt most was the truth in them. In his world, that shining, glass and steel world he'd worked so hard to enter, I really was nobody, just another invisible man in work boots, building their dreams while mine collected dust. "Is that really what you think?" I asked. "That I'm nobody?" His face crumpled a little. "No, Dad, that's not. I don't think that. But they would. And once they think it about you, they'll think it about me. And everything I've worked for, everything I've achieved, it'll all be tainted by where I came from." Tainted. I repeated, tasting the word like poison. "Your background is a taint." "That's not what I meant." "It's exactly what you meant." My phone buzzed. A DoorDash order was waiting. The irony wasn't lost on me. My son was upstairs pretending I was in Tokyo while I was about to deliver someone's dinner for a $5 tip. "I have to go," I said. "Dad, wait." "Your mother used to say something," I interrupted. "She'd say, a house built on sand might look pretty, but the first storm will show you what it's really made of. You keep building your house of lies, Marcus. But storms always come. They always come." I left him standing there and went to work. That night's delivery route took me through some of Newark's roughest neighborhoods. then into the gleaming suburbs where houses sat behind gates like fortresses. At one stop, a kid, maybe 10 years old, answered the door. He looked at me with curious eyes and asked, "Is it hard being a delivery guy?" "Every job's hard in its own way," I told him. "My dad says people who deliver food are losers who couldn't make it in real jobs." His mother appeared behind him, mortified. "Tyler, I'm so sorry." "It's all right," I said, handing over the food. Kid's just repeating what he hears. As I walked back to my car, I thought about Marcus. Was he any different from that kid? Just repeating the values he'd absorbed from his new world? Or had those values become truly his? The stocks were worth $35 now. $1.75 million. Enough to shut everyone up. Enough to make Marcus's lies become retroactive truths. But something held me back from telling him. Maybe I wanted to see how far he'd go. Maybe I wanted to know if there was a bottom to this pit he was digging. Or maybe, and this thought came to me as I sat in traffic, watching the sunset over a city that had been my whole world. Maybe I was afraid that even $1.75 million wouldn't be enough to buy back my son's respect. Maybe there was no amount of money that could make him see me the way he used to, back when my hard hat was a crown and my tools were magic wands that could build anything, fix anything, make anything possible. That night, I added another document to my Bible, a printout of the stock price, dated and signed. Evidence for a future I couldn't quite imagine but felt coming like a storm on the horizon. May arrived with unusual heat, the kind that made the construction site feel like the inside of an oven by noon. I was 63 years old, and every joint in my body reminded me of that fact each morning. But work was work, and bills didn't care about arthritis or pride, or the fact that I was technically a millionaire on paper. Marcus had started bringing his colleagues around the apartment building, not inside, never inside. But I'd see them sometimes, waiting for him in the lobby or outside by the street. They all looked the same to me, young, polished, wearing watches that cost more than most people's cars. And there was Marcus in the middle of them, laughing at their jokes, matching their energy, playing his part to perfection. One evening, I was coming home from a particularly brutal DoorDash shift. 3 orders to high-rises where the elevators were residents only, meaning I had to climb 15 flights of stairs when I saw Marcus standing outside our building with a young woman. She was beautiful in that expensive way, where everything from her haircut to her posture screamed money. "And that's why I prefer the penthouse view," Marcus was saying. "You can really see the whole city from up there." Penthouse. We lived on the 2nd floor, and the only view was of Mrs. Rodriguez's laundry line and a brick wall. The woman noticed me approaching, and I saw Marcus's body tense. I was still in my DoorDash shirt, carrying the insulated bag, looking exactly like what I was, a tired old man who delivered food for extra money. "Oh," the woman said, smiling politely. "Food's here, Marcus." Marcus looked at me, and I saw the calculation in his eyes. He could pretend not to know me, order me to leave the food and go. For a second, I thought he might actually do it. "Thanks," he said stiffly, reaching for his wallet. "How much?" I played along, my heart breaking with each word, already paid for through the app. He pulled out a 20, handed it to me. "Keep the change." A $20 tip from my own son, paying me to pretend I was a stranger. I took it, nodded, and walked past them into the building. Behind me, I heard the woman say, "That was generous of you." "Well," Marcus replied, "those guys work hard. It's the least I can do." Those guys. Not my father. Not even someone I know. Those guys. I climbed the stairs to our apartment, each step heavier than the last. Inside, I went straight to my room, to the Bible, to the stock printouts. $38 a share now. 1.9 million. Almost $2 million, and I was taking $20 tips from my son to maintain his charade. The next morning was Saturday. Marcus usually slept in, but I heard him moving around early, getting dressed. "You heading out?" I asked when he emerged from his room, dressed in khakis and a polo shirt, his casual wealth uniform, I'd started calling it in my head. "Golf," he said, not meeting my eyes. "With some people from work." "Since when do you play golf?" "Since it became necessary for my career." He was packing a bag, though I knew he didn't own golf clubs, probably renting them, or borrowing, or who knows what story he'd concocted. "Marcus, we need to talk about last night." There's nothing to talk about. You gave me a $20 tip. You needed it more than I did. The casual cruelty of that statement hung in the air between us. I'm your father, I said quietly, and I'm trying to become something more than what I was born into, he shot back. Is that so wrong? Is it wrong to want more? It's not wrong to want more. It's wrong to be ashamed of where you came from. Easy for you to say, he muttered, heading for the door. You've never had the option of being anything other than what you are. After he left, I sat in the empty apartment, listening to the sounds of Saturday morning in Newark, kids playing, music from someone's radio, the eternal symphony of traffic. I thought about Cheryl, wondered what she would say about all this. She'd probably quote scripture at me, something about pride and falls and the dangers of wealth. But she'd also understand Marcus in a way I couldn't. She'd know how to reach him. My phone rang. Pete from the construction site. Sebastian, you sitting down? Why? The stock hit 42 this morning. There's talk of a buyout from a Chinese firm. If it goes through, could hit 60, maybe 70. $70 a share, $3.5 million. Sebastian, you there? I'm here. You haven't sold any, have you? No. Good. Hold tight. This could be life-changing money. Life-changing. I wanted to laugh. My life had already changed. I'd gone from being a father to being an embarrassment, from a role model to a shameful secret. What good was money if it came after you'd already lost everything that mattered? That evening, Marcus came home late, drunk. Not falling down drunk, but loose, unguarded in a way I hadn't seen in years. He sat down at the kitchen table where I was eating my dinner, leftover rice and beans, the same meal I'd been eating for 3 decades. We played at the most incredible course today, he said, words slightly slurred. Martindale Country Club. Do you know how much the membership fee is? Guess. I don't know, Marcus. $100,000 just to join. Then $50,000 a year after that. He laughed, but it was bitter. Bradley's dad has been a member since before Bradley was born. It's nothing to them. Nothing. And you want that to be nothing to you too? He looked at me with unfocused eyes. I want to stop feeling like I'm drowning every time they talk about their normal lives. I want to stop lying. But I can't stop lying because the truth is. He gestured around our small kitchen, at the peeling linoleum, the ancient refrigerator, the water stain on the ceiling we've been meaning to fix for 5 years. The truth is this. The truth is a father who loves you, I said. The truth is a home where you're always welcome. The truth is a family history of hard work and dignity. Dignity doesn't pay for membership at Martindale, he said, standing up unsteadily. Dignity doesn't buy respect in my world. Then maybe you're in the wrong world. He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in his eyes. Not understanding, not yet, but maybe the beginning of a question he'd never thought to ask before. I'm going to make it, Dad, he said quietly. With or without your approval, I'm going to make it in that world. And once I do, once I have real money, real status, then I can tell the truth. Then I can say, yes, my father was a construction worker, but look where I am now. Then it becomes an inspiring story instead of a shameful secret. And what if that day never comes? What if you spend your whole life chasing their approval and never catch it? He didn't answer, just walked to his room and closed the door. I sat there in the kitchen, finishing my rice and beans, thinking about storms and sand and houses that look solid until they aren't. The stock closed that day at $43, $2.15 million. I was worth more than Marcus could imagine, more than his colleagues would expect, more than enough to buy respect in their shallow world. But I kept my silence, watching my son build his elaborate fiction higher and higher, knowing that eventually, inevitably, it would all come crashing down. The only question was whether there would be anything left to salvage when it did. June brought with it a heat wave that turned Newark into a concrete furnace. The construction site became unbearable by 10 in the morning, and even the younger guys were struggling. I'd taken to soaking my shirt in cold water before putting it on, just to get a few minutes of relief before the heat dried it out again. It was during one of these scorching afternoons that I got the call that would set everything in motion. Sebastian Williams? The voice was professional, crisp, the kind that belonged in Marcus's world, not mine. Yeah, that's me. This is David Chen from Hartfield Investments. I'm calling about your shares in Riverside Development Corp. My hand tightened on the phone. What about them? Mr. Williams, are you aware that your shares are currently valued at approximately $2.3 million? I'm aware. We're prepared to offer you a private sale at $48 per share, cash transaction, immediate payment. That's $5 above market price. $2.4 million. Cash. Immediate. Why? I asked. Why pay above market? There was a pause. We believe the stock will continue to rise. We're willing to pay a premium for a large block of shares. This is a limited time offer, Mr. Williams. I'll need an answer within 48 hours. After I hung up, I stood there in the blazing sun, sweat running down my face, thinking about what $2.4 million could buy. Not just things, respect, validation, proof that Sebastian Williams was somebody after all. That evening, I was doing a DoorDash run to a place in Jersey City, one of those new waterfront developments where everything gleamed like it had been built yesterday. The customer had ordered from 3 different restaurants: sushi, Italian, and Thai food. Rich people's problems, I thought, carrying the bags up to the 15th floor. The door opened, and I found myself face to face with one of Marcus's colleagues. I recognized him from that video call. Bradley, the one whose father owned hedge funds. "Oh, hey," he said, taking the bags. "You're fast." "I try to be," I said, turning to leave. "Wait." He was looking at me strangely. "Have we met? You look familiar." My heart stopped. "I don't think so." "No, I'm sure I've seen you somewhere." He snapped his fingers. "Do you work multiple jobs? Maybe downtown Newark?" "I work construction during the day," I admitted, seeing no way around it. "Construction," he laughed. "Man, that's hard work, respect. My dad always says America was built by guys like you." Guys like me. There it was again, that invisible line between us and them. "Hey," Bradley continued, pulling out his wallet, "I'm actually having some people over tomorrow night. A work thing. Could use someone to help serve, tend bar, that kind of thing. You interested? I'll pay $500 for the night. $500 to serve drinks to my son's colleagues, to potentially serve drinks to my own son." "I'll think about it," I said. "Here's my card. Text me if you're interested." I took the card. Bradley Morrison III, investment analyst, Steinberg and Associates, the same firm where Marcus worked. That night, Marcus was home, which was unusual for a Friday. He was in the living room, laptop open, working on something that had him completely absorbed. "Big project?" I asked. "The Paramount deal," he said without looking up. "The property in Tribeca I mentioned, we're structuring the investment portfolio for it." "We?" "The firm. But I'm lead analyst on it. If this goes well..." He finally looked up and his eyes were bright with ambition. "If this goes well, I'm looking at senior associate, maybe even junior partner track." "That's good, son." "It's not just good, Dad. It's everything. The Paramount is connected to this massive development project. Foreign investors, government contracts, the whole 9 yards. The people buying these units aren't just rich. They're powerful, connected. The kind of people who can change your life with one phone call. And you want to be one of those people. I want to stop pretending to be one of those people and actually become one." He turned back to his laptop. "Bradley's having a thing tomorrow night. All the key players will be there. This is my shot to show them I belong." Bradley's party, where he'd offered me $500 to serve drinks. "What are you going to tell them about your background?" I asked carefully. Marcus's fingers paused over the keyboard. "I've got it handled." "More stories about my real estate empire?" "Dad, please, not tonight. I'm so close to everything I've worked for. Can't you just be happy for me?" "Happy." How could I be happy watching my son tie himself in knots, creating elaborate fictions just to impress people who wouldn't spit on him if he was on fire and they knew the truth? "There's something I need to tell you," I started, thinking about the stocks, the $2.3 million, the offer from Hartfield. "Can it wait? I really need to focus on this." I looked at him, hunched over his laptop, building his castle of lies one spreadsheet at a time, and I made a decision. "Yeah," I said, "it can wait." The next morning I texted Bradley. "I'll take the job." "Excellent," he texted back. "Black pants, white shirt if you have it. Address attached. See you at 7. I spent the day preparing myself mentally for what was about to happen. I could have said no, could have avoided the whole situation, but part of me needed to see it. Needed to see how far Marcus would go, how deep his shame ran, whether there was any bottom to this pit he dug for himself. Pete called while I was ironing my single white dress shirt. "Stock hit 46 today," he said. "You still holding?" "Still holding." "You got nerves of steel, Sebastian. Most guys would have cashed out at 30. Nerves of steel. If only he knew I was about to serve cocktails at a party where my own son would pretend not to know me. "Pete," I said, "what would you do if your kid was ashamed of you?" There was a long pause. I'd probably wonder where I went wrong. Then I'd remember that kids have to find their own way, make their own mistakes. You can't live their lives for them. Even if you could fix everything, make all their problems go away, especially then. Pain's a teacher, Sebastian. Sometimes it's the only teacher that works. After we hung up, I stood looking at myself in the mirror. 63 years old, wearing a white shirt that had been washed so many times it was almost transparent in places. About to go serve drinks to people young enough to be my children, one of whom was my child. Cheryl would have laughed at the absurdity of it all. Then she would have told me I was being foolish, that I should just tell Marcus about the money and end this charade. But Cheryl always saw the best in people. She never had to watch her son look at her like she was something to be scraped off his shoe. That evening, as I headed to Bradley's apartment in Jersey City, the stock market closed with Riverside Development at $47, $2.35 million. I was about to serve drinks as a millionaire pretending to be poor, to a son pretending his poor father was rich. If it wasn't so heartbreaking, it might have been funny. Bradley's apartment was everything Marcus pretended we had. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Manhattan skyline, marble countertops that reflected the city lights, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. I stood in the service entrance, wearing my pressed white shirt and black pants, holding a tray of champagne glasses that cost more than my monthly DoorDash earnings. "You're Sebastian, right?" Bradley appeared, already a drink in, his cheeks flushed with expensive whiskey. "Perfect timing. Guests are starting to arrive. Just circulate, keep the glasses full, and there's extra if you help with cleanup after." I nodded, slipping into the invisibility that comes with service work. It's a skill, becoming part of the background, present but unnoticed, like furniture that happens to move. The first wave of guests were older, partners and senior associates from various firms. They treated me with the polite disregard of people used to being served. Please and thank you, but no eye contact, no recognition that I was anything more than a function. Then the younger crowd started arriving. Marcus's peers, all confidence and entitlement, talking about deals and bonuses and vacation homes like they were discussing the weather. I moved among them, refilling glasses, collecting empties, invisible. Marcus arrived at 8:47. I know the exact time because I'd been checking my phone obsessively, dreading and anticipating this moment in equal measure. He walked in with the same woman from before, Jennifer, I heard someone call her. She was wearing a dress that probably cost more than I made in a month, and Marcus had his hand on the small of her back, guiding her through the room like he belonged there. I watched him work the room, shaking hands, laughing at the right moments, dropping references to deals and properties and connections that didn't exist. He was good at it. If I didn't know the truth, I'd have believed in myself. "You drink, man!" Someone snapped their fingers at me. One of Bradley's friends, a young guy with slicked back hair and a Rolex that caught the light every time he moved. "Scotch, neat. The Macallan, if they have it." I went to the bar, poured the drink, brought it back. The guy took it without looking at me, continuing his conversation about shorting some stock that was guaranteed to tank. I was refilling champagne glasses when I heard Marcus's voice getting closer. He was telling a story about a property in Miami, the one he'd supposedly helped his fictional father acquire. And the seller tried to back out at the last minute, but my dad just looked him in the eye and said, "A deal's a deal." Walked out with the deed that same day. "Your father sounds like a force of nature," Jennifer said. "He is," Marcus replied. That's when he saw me. I was standing maybe 5 feet away, holding a tray of champagne, and our eyes met. Time seemed to slow down. I saw the recognition hit him like a physical blow, saw his face cycle through surprise, fear, and then something worse, Calculation. Champagne? I offered, my voice steady despite the earthquake in my chest. Jennifer reached for a glass. Thank you. Marcus didn't move. He was staring at me, and I could see the war playing out behind his eyes. He could acknowledge me, blow up his carefully constructed world, or he could pretend I was exactly what I appeared to be, the help. Marcus? Jennifer touched his arm. You okay? Yeah, he said, his voice strange. Just thought I recognized. Never mind. He started to turn away, and something in me snapped. All the hurt, all the shame he'd poured on me, all the lies I'd swallowed, it all came surging up. Marcus, I said quietly. He froze. Don't you want some champagne? I continued, my voice louder now. Others were starting to notice. He turned back slowly. I'm good, thanks. You sure? It's the good stuff. Probably costs more than some people make in a week delivering food. Jennifer laughed nervously. That's oddly specific. Bradley appeared, sensing tension. Everything okay here? Fine, Marcus said quickly. Actually, I said, setting down the tray, I know this young man. The room seemed to quiet around us. Marcus's face had gone pale. You do? Bradley asked, looking between us. Oh yeah, I know him very well. Don't I, Marcus? Marcus's mouth opened, closed, opened again. I don't. You don't know me? I asked. That's funny, because I could have sworn I raised you, changed your diapers, taught you to ride a bike, worked 16-hour days to put you through college. The silence that followed was deafening. Jennifer stepped back. Marcus, what is he talking about? Marcus started, then stopped. I'm his father, I said simply. Sebastian Williams. Construction worker, part-time DoorDash driver, and apparently, according to my son here, nobody. Bradley laughed, but it was uncertain, confused. Wait, you said your father was in real estate, that he was in Tokyo this week. Tokyo, I repeated. No, I was in Newark, laying foundation for a building people like you will live in while looking down on people like me. Dad, please, Marcus finally found his voice. You don't understand? I understand perfectly, I said. I understand that you're so ashamed of me, you'd rather invent a fictional father than admit who I really am. Is this some kind of joke? Jennifer asked, looking at Marcus. I wish it was, I said. But no, this is just a son who thinks his father's honest work isn't good enough for his new friends. The crowd had formed a circle around us now, everyone watching like this was dinner theater. How could you? Marcus's voice cracked. How could you do this to me? Do this to you? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Boy, I've been letting you do this to me for months, watching you lie, watching you pretend, watching you look through me like I'm invisible. Well, I'm done being invisible. You don't know what it's like, Marcus said, and there were tears in his eyes now. You don't know what I have to deal with every day, the pressure, the expectations. I know what it's like to work until your hands bleed, I interrupted. I know what it's like to skip meals so your kid can eat. I know what it's like to watch your wife die of cancer because you couldn't afford the good doctors until it was too late. And I know what it's like to have your son look at you like you're something he stepped in. Someone in the crowd whispered, "This is insane." You want to know something really insane? I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, the one connected to my investment account. You all think Marcus here comes from money? Take a look at this. I turned the screen toward the crowd. The balance showed clear as day. $2,347,000. The gasps were audible. That's right, I said. The construction worker you've been laughing at, the DoorDash driver you've been tipping with your spare change, I'm worth more than most of you will see in the next 10 years. Stocks in Riverside Development, been holding them for months, while my son made up stories about a rich father who doesn't exist, not knowing his poor father was richer than his lies. Marcus stared at the phone screen like it might burn him. That's not possible. 50,000 shares at $47 each, I said. Do the math. Oh, wait, you're good at math? You're an analyst, right? The one who's been working on the Paramount deal? You knew? His voice was barely a whisper. I've known everything, Marcus. Every lie, every story, every time you pretended not to know me. I've known and I've kept quiet because I kept hoping my son would come back, that the boy I raised would remember who he is, where he comes from. Bradley cleared his throat. Sebastian, I had no idea. Marcus, why would you? Because he was ashamed, I said, not letting Marcus answer. Ashamed of his working-class father. ashamed of our apartment, ashamed of everything that made him who he is. I looked around the room at all these young faces, all these children playing at being adults, and I felt tired. So tired. You know what the really sad part is? I said, focusing on Marcus again. I was going to surprise you with this money, was going to wait for the right moment, maybe your wedding or your first kid, and hand it all over. Say, here, son, here's your head start. Here's your chance to be everything you want to be. But now, I picked up my tray again. Now I realize money isn't what you needed. What you needed was a spine, and apparently, I failed to give you that. I started walking toward the door. Behind me, the room exploded in conversation, but I heard Marcus's voice cut through it all. Dad, wait, please! I stopped but didn't turn around. I'll be at home, Marcus, in our embarrassing apartment, in our shameful neighborhood, being nobody. You know where to find me if you ever remember who you really are. I left Bradley's apartment and walked out into the Newark night. The city looked different somehow, sharper, more real. For months I've been living in Marcus's fiction, playing my part, accepting my role as the shameful secret. But I was done with that now. Done pretending that love meant accepting disrespect. Done believing that money could fix what was broken between us. The stock market would open again on Monday. The shares would continue to rise or fall. The money would grow or shrink. But none of that mattered anymore. What mattered was that somewhere in that gleaming apartment, my son was facing the truth for the first time in months. And maybe, just maybe, that truth would be the storm that finally knocked down his house of cards, leaving room to build something real in its place. I didn't go straight home. Instead, I walked for hours through Jersey City, then took the PATH train into Manhattan, ending up in Central Park as the sun rose over the city. My phone had been buzzing nonstop since I left the party. Calls from Marcus, texts I didn't read. I turned it off and sat on a bench, watching joggers pass by, their lives seemingly uncomplicated by the weight of betrayal. A homeless man sat down next to me, eyeing my server's outfit. Rough night? He asked. You could say that. Family? I looked at him, surprised. How'd you know? He laughed, showing gaps where teeth should be. Only family can hurt you that bad. Friends, lovers, they can wound you. But family? Family can destroy you because they know exactly where to aim. He was right. Marcus knew exactly where to aim, at my pride, my sense of worth, my belief that hard work meant something. You got kids? I asked him. 2 daughters. Haven't seen them in 6 years. My own fault. Chose the bottle over them. By the time I got clean, they'd moved on. Can't blame them. He pulled out a crumpled photo from his pocket, 2 young women smiling at a camera. Keep this to remind me of what I lost. You ever try to reach out? Every Christmas, I send cards to their old address. Don't know if they get them, but I send them anyway. He stood up, adjusting his worn coat. You still got a chance with yours? I don't know. Then you're already ahead of me, friend. Don't waste it. After he left, I sat there until noon, then finally made my way back to Newark. The apartment felt different when I walked in, smaller somehow, shabbier. I'd been seeing it through Marcus's eyes for so long, I'd forgotten how it looked through my own. It wasn't much, but it was home. It was real. Marcus wasn't there. His door was open, his bed still made from yesterday morning. On his desk was a printout of the Paramount property listing, with notes in his handwriting about investment strategies and projected returns. All that work for a lie he'd been living. I made myself a sandwich, sat in my recliner, and finally turned on my phone. 47 missed calls, over 100 texts. I scrolled through them without reading, then noticed one from an unknown number. Mr. Williams, this is Jennifer. I got your number from Marcus's phone. I wanted to say I'm sorry for how tonight went. You didn't deserve that. Your son is a good man who lost his way. I hope you can both find a path back to each other. A good man who lost his way. Was that what Marcus was? Or had I just failed to see who he really was all along? Around 4 o'clock, I heard his key in the lock. He walked in slowly, like he was entering a church or a funeral home. His clothes were wrinkled, his eyes red-rimmed. Dad? I didn't answer, just looked at him. He stood there in the doorway of the living room, seeming younger than his 23 years. Can we talk? You want to talk now, after months of pretending I don't exist? I deserve that. You deserve a lot more than that. He moved into the room, sat on the couch across from me. They fired me. I wasn't expecting that. What? Not officially. Bradley's father called the senior partners. They gave me the option to resign immediately or be terminated for ethics violations. Apparently, lying about your background to secure client relationships constitutes fraud. Marcus, I'm not telling you this for sympathy, he interrupted. I'm telling you because you were right. The house of cards fell, just like you said it would. We sat in silence for a moment. How long have you had the money? He asked finally. Since March, the company gave me stocks for saving the Riverside deal. And you never said anything. Would it have mattered? Would you suddenly have been proud of me if you knew I had money? He thought about it, really thought about it. Probably. And that's the problem, isn't it? I became someone who measures worth in dollars. When did it start? I asked. When did you start being ashamed of me? He rubbed his face with his hands. The first day at the firm, we were all introducing ourselves, talking about our backgrounds. Everyone had these stories. Summer homes in the Hamptons, boarding schools, fathers who ran companies or sat on boards. And when it came to me, I panicked. I said you were in real estate. It wasn't even planned. It just came out. And then you had to keep lying. One lie became 10, 10 became 100. And the worst part, it worked. People treated me differently when they thought I came from money. Doors opened. Opportunities appeared. I got invited to things, included in deals, all because of who they thought my father was. And now I'm nobody. The diversity hire who couldn't hack it. The kid who pretended to be something he wasn't. He laughed bitterly. Bradley actually said to me, "Why didn't you just tell the truth? We would have respected you more for being self-made." Would they have? I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe they're just saying that now. He looked at me directly for the first time. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I became someone I don't recognize, someone Mom would be disgusted by. The mention of Cheryl made my throat tight. Your mother would be disappointed, but she'd never be disgusted by you. She loved you too much for that. How can you not hate me? After everything I did, everything I said, I thought about it, really considered the question. Because hate takes energy I don't have anymore, and because I keep remembering this little boy who used to follow me around construction sites, wearing a hard hat that was too big for his head, saying he wanted to be just like me when he grew up. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. I did want to be like you. I forgot that somewhere along the way. The money, I said, the stocks, it's all still there. Over 2 million now. I don't want it. It's not about want, it's about what you do with it. You can use it to run away, start over somewhere else, pretend this never happened. Or you can use it to become something real. Not the fictional Marcus with the fictional father, but the real one. The one whose father laid foundations and delivered food and saved every penny to give his son a chance. What would you do? If you were me, I leaned back in my chair. I'd start by remembering that money doesn't make you somebody. It just makes you rich. There's a difference. He nodded slowly. The Paramount deal, the property I was working on, one of the units just became available. The buyer backed out. With your money, we could actually buy it. We? If you want. I mean, I understand if you don't want anything to do with me. I looked at him. This young man who was my son, who'd hurt me deeper than anyone ever had, who'd made me question everything about myself as a father. You know what your mother used to say? I asked. She'd say, love isn't about never falling down. It's about always getting back up. So what are you saying? I'm saying I'm tired, Marcus. Tired of pretending. Tired of being ashamed. Tired of living in your fiction. If we're going to do this, we do it as ourselves. Sebastian Williams, construction worker, and his son Marcus, who made mistakes but is trying to make them right. I can do that. Can you? Can you introduce me to people without making excuses? Can you tell them what I really do without editing it to sound better? I want to try. Trying isn't enough. Either you do it or you don't. He stood up, walked over to my chair, and did something he hadn't done in years. He hugged me. Not a quick, obligatory hug, but a real one, the kind that says what words can't. I'll do it, he whispered. I'll do it right this time. I hugged him back, feeling something in my chest that might have been hope or might have been fear. Trust, once broken, doesn't just repair itself. It has to be rebuilt, brick by brick, truth by truth. But at least now we had a foundation to build on. A real one this time, not made of lies and shame, but of something stronger, the decision to face the truth, no matter how much it hurt. The next 3 weeks were the hardest of my life, and I'm including the week Cheryl died in that calculation. At least with death, there's a finality to it. With betrayal, with broken trust, you're stuck in this limbo where every interaction feels like walking on glass. Marcus had moved back to his childhood routine, up early, helping with breakfast, looking for jobs during the day. But the ease between us was gone. We were like two actors who'd forgotten their lines, fumbling through scenes that used to flow naturally. It was a Thursday when everything came to a head. Pete had invited me to lunch to celebrate. The stock had hit $55, and there were rumors of the buyout being finalized within days. "You're going to be set for life, Sebastian," Pete said over burgers at our usual spot. "What's the first thing you're going to do?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. "It doesn't feel real yet." "Make it real. Go to the bank, see the numbers in person. Trust me, it helps." So I did. I went to Chase on Broad Street, asked to speak with a private banker. The young woman who helped me tried to hide her surprise when she pulled up my investment account. "Mr. Williams," she said, adjusting her glasses, "with assets of this size, you qualify for our private wealth management services. We could help you structure this for tax efficiency, perhaps diversify into—" "It's not just my money," I interrupted. "I need to add my son as a joint account holder." She nodded, started pulling up forms. "Will your son be coming in to sign?" Yeah, he will." That evening, I told Marcus about the account. He was sitting at the kitchen table, working on job applications on his laptop, a used Dell I'd bought him in college, not the sleek MacBook his former colleagues all had. "Tomorrow we're going to the bank," I said, "making you co-owner of the account." He looked up, shocked. "Dad, no, after everything I did. This was always for you. That hasn't changed." "But I don't deserve. Nobody deserves anything," I cut him off. "We get what we get, and we make choices about what to do with it. This is my choice." "Why?" "Because your mother would have wanted it. Because despite everything, you're my son. And because maybe having something real will help you stop needing to create fiction." He closed his laptop slowly. "There's something I need to tell you." My heart sank. "After everything, more secrets?" "I've been going to the old construction sites," he said. "The ones you worked on when I was little, just walking around them, remembering." "Remembering what?" "How proud I was. How I used to tell kids at school that my dad built buildings, that he was like a superhero who made homes for people." He smiled sadly. "There's this one building on Clinton Avenue, you probably don't remember it." "The Meridian," I said immediately. 14 stories, mixed use. We finished it in 2009. "You remember." "I remember every building I ever worked on. They're like children to me. I helped bring them into the world." I stood in front of it yesterday for an hour, just looking at it, thinking about how many families live there because you and your crew built something solid, something real. And I compared that to what I was doing at the firm, moving imaginary money around, creating nothing, building nothing. "Marcus, I called Mr. Peterson," he continued. Mr. Peterson was my old foreman, retired now, but still connected to everyone in Newark construction. Asked if he knew anyone who was hiring. I stared at him. "You want to work construction?" "I want to work, period. And maybe starting where you started isn't the worst thing. Maybe I need to learn what real work feels like." "It's hard work, Marcus. Harder than anything you've ever done." "I know." "Your hands will bleed. Your back will scream. You'll be doing grunt work that any high school dropout could do." "I know, and the guys will know who you are. The college boy, the one who was too good for his father's work." "I know that too." We looked at each other across the kitchen table, father and son, separated by 3 feet and 3 months of lies. "Peterson says Harris Construction is hiring," Marcus said. "They're starting a new project Monday, affordable housing in the Ironbound. Affordable housing. Homes for people like us, the ones the Paramount wouldn't even let through the door. If you're serious about this." "I am." "Then you need to know something." I stood up, went to my room, came back with a hard hat. Not a new one, but mine from when I first started, scratched, dented, with Williams written on the side in faded marker. "This was mine when I was your age. If you're going to do this, do it right." He took the hard hat like it was made of gold, turning it over in his hands. You kept this? Your mother said to. Said maybe one day you'd need it. I paused. I don't think this is what she meant, but here we are. The next morning, we went to the bank together. Marcus signed the papers making him co-owner of an account worth $2.75 million. The banker kept looking between us, the old man in work clothes and the young man in khakis, trying to figure out our story. Is there anything else we can help you with today? She asked. Marcus spoke up. Yes, I want to set up an automatic transfer, $500,000 to a separate account in my father's name only. I started to protest, but he held up his hand. That's for you, Dad. Just you. For retirement, for medical bills, for whatever you want. The rest we can figure out together, but that's yours. Marcus, it's the least I can do. It doesn't make up for anything, but it's a start. That weekend, while Marcus prepared for his first day at Harris Construction, the news broke about the buyout. Riverside Development was being acquired by a Chinese conglomerate for $62 a share. My phone rang nonstop. Pete, other guys from the crew who'd heard rumors, even Bradley Morrison III. Mr. Williams, Bradley's voice was tentative over the phone. I heard about the buyout. Congratulations. Thanks. Listen, I wanted to apologize for that night, for how I treated you, for everything. You didn't know. That's not an excuse. I should have treated you with respect regardless of who I thought you were. He paused. And I wanted you to know, Marcus was good at his job. Really good. What happened was my father's decision, not mine. If I had my own firm, I'd hire him back in a heartbeat. Maybe tell him that yourself. I tried. He won't return my calls. Give him time. Mr. Williams, can I ask you something? Shoot. How did you do it? How did you watch him lie about you and not say anything? I thought about it. Love makes you stupid sometimes, but it also makes you patient. I kept hoping he'd find his way back. And did he? We're working on it. Monday morning came gray and humid, the kind of day that promised rain but never delivered. I drove Marcus to the Harris construction site, watched him climb out of the car wearing his work boots and my old hard hat. You sure about this? I asked one more time. No, he admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. The guys are going to test you. They're going to make your life hell for a while. Good. Good? Yeah. I need to earn it, Dad. All of it. Respect, trust, everything. I need to earn it the right way this time. I watched him walk onto that construction site, and for the first time in months, I saw my son. Not the fictional Marcus with the fictional father, not the Wall Street pretender, but my son, the one who'd gotten lost and was trying to find his way home. The storm had come, just like Cheryl always said it would. The house of cards had fallen, but maybe, just maybe, we could build something better from the rubble. Something real, something that could weather any storm. The stock sale went through that afternoon, $3.1 million deposited into our account. I stared at the number on my phone, waiting to feel different, waiting to feel like somebody. But I felt exactly the same, because Marcus had been wrong about something fundamental. I was never nobody. I was Sebastian Williams, construction worker, father, widower, delivery man. The money didn't change any of that. It just meant I could afford better work boots. That night, Marcus came home covered in concrete dust and sweat, his hands already blistering despite the gloves. How was it? I asked. Brutal, he said, but he was smiling. Absolutely brutal. And real. Really, really real. Welcome to the real world, son. Dad, that property in Tribeca, the Paramount, I don't want it anymore. No? No, but there's a building in Newark, one you worked on, the Meridian. There's a unit for sale on the 14th floor. The top floor of a building I'd helped build. Full circle. We'll go look at it tomorrow, I said. Together? Together. And for the first time in months, I believed we actually might make it. Not as the people we pretended to be, but as the people we really were. It wasn't much, maybe, but it was real. And real, I was learning, was everything.